It is an extremely difficult time to hold an election, and some say it could be pretty chaotic. Others are saying that perhaps we'll see cybersecurity to prevent electronic voting. What are you anticipating?
Well, it's hello, and thank you for having me. It's an extraordinary election year for all of the reasons you've just cited. As we see coronavirus infections on the rise in most states in the United States, we're also seeing a historic turnout in voters during this election, and an incredible number of people pre-polling, putting in mail-in ballots, and absentee voting. The United States is known for not having a very good voter turnout, but this election seems to have brought them out in droves. We are seeing some tightness in some of the key swing states right now. All the polling is showing that the president is behind or very close to former Vice President Joe Biden. And no one quite knows how Election Day itself is going to turn out in terms of number of voters as well as the result, because of this unprecedented number of pre-polling taking place and some states not able to count votes, start the count of the votes until the day of the election itself. So it's a very tense time in America. It's going to determine which direction the country wants to go: 4 more years of the president or a change in leadership. And we're all waiting with great interest.
And Kim, we're showing live pictures of President Trump in Georgia making a final push in his bid to rally support, his 4th rally for the day. There's a view out there that men and women perhaps have never been more divided in their view towards Trump. Do you share this view? Do you expect women to perhaps swing the votes to Joe Biden?
I absolutely do. I think this election is all about women. We've seen that women are the majority of the population in the United States. They overwhelmingly came out to vote in 2018 in the midterm elections. They have had unprecedented numbers of women running for office, elected office in America, and winning election. And of course, we've seen Vice President Biden choose the first woman of color as his vice presidential running mate. So, you know, it is known that it's probably women that will be the determining factor in this race. The president has not widened his base at all. He's not widened it, certainly not with women. His appeals to suburban housewives, as he calls them, fell flat, and those numbers just aren't producing for him. In fact, the one demographic that the president has been strong in over Biden, which is non-college educated white males, he's still lost some support there. So that's why we see these polls that are showing Biden coming back in states that the president won overwhelmingly in 2016. But Biden has really tightened that. And so, yes, I think we'll see women will be determining the outcome of this election on November 3rd.
That takes us to the issue of deepening polarization within the country. Do you see either Trump or Biden being able to unite the country after the election?
It's a good question, of course. The election, the entire 4 years of the president's term has been filled with division. Now, the president hasn't been the cause of the division in the United States. That's been happening for decades, with division within the political parties, American voters unhappy with intransigence in Congress, and the partisan politics that have been a part and parcel of the U.S. system in the last 30 years or so. Now, the president has exacerbated that division that has existed. He said a lot of things out loud that president would never have said before. He's delegitimizing the election itself. So on the ballot is actually America's democracy, not just Biden and Trump, but really people's faith in American democracy is on the ballot. He's right now creating distrust over the validity and legitimacy of mail-in ballots,
Kim,
which are votes, so they need to be counted as well.
Kim, this very, very quickly here, is America, people have described this election as the most important in a living memory. Would you agree with that? And what are the choices facing the U.S. electorate? Are they really facing a fork in the road?
I really do believe it is a tipping point for America. And it is the most important election, certainly since Abraham Lincoln, a president that Donald Trump likes to quote a lot. But I do think it's important. The demographics in America have changed dramatically over the last 30 years. By 2050, white Americans will be the majority minority in the country. That's scaring some Americans, even though America has always been an immigrant country. There's been an assault on immigration in the United States, a drastic reduction in that. But there's also been a lot of grievance, both on the right and the left, that their issues haven't been addressed. And I think this is how Donald Trump got into office. I would point to the 2018 midterms again. For me, that was a bit of a bellwether as to what direction the United States wanted to go going forward. And they overwhelmingly voted in Democrats into the House. The Democrats retook the House of Representatives. And I think that, and they, in 2019, they also won some key local elections and state elections and governorships. So I do think that this election will tell us, like I said, what direction the United States wants to go, a more isolationist approach or a return to calm and stability.
Kim, what about the soul of the Republican Party? Should Donald Trump be re-elected, would that paper over the cracks that exist there, or perhaps seemingly exist there? If he should lose, where would we find that party afterwards?
You're asking such good questions, because I really think this is the crux of the problem, and that is that the Republican Party has fractured so much, really from the early 1990s with Newt Gingrich, who really introduced this kind of aggressive language that the president uses, that talks about the distrust of American government, the deep state conspiracies, and the party itself factionalized into more right-wing conservatism with the Tea Party and the Freedom Caucus, and had become quite obstructionist in the last couple of decades. It's not to say the Democrats also haven't had their own political problems, internal party problems as well. They've just kept them in check a little bit better, particularly for this election. But I really feel for the Republicans that it's becoming harder and harder for them to win elections because they have not widened their base. And as I said before, the population demographics are changing. That's not favoring the Republicans, and they're having a harder time finding a route to win. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of manipulation, voter suppression, the use of lawyers and the courts to try to reduce the ability to count ballots or to reduce the ability of Americans to get to a polling place or to access voting easily. So I do feel that this is going to be a huge wake-up call for the Republicans if the president loses. And as far as if he wins re-election, well, it's certainly, I think, the death knell for the traditional Republican Party if it hasn't already been buried yet.